Is California set up to be one of the surprises in the ACC in the 2026 college football season? They've got the young quarterback who dazzled at times last year, and Saga Polutele, say that 10 times fast, and plenty of other answers under new head coach Tosh Lupe. And it is going to be very, very interesting to see if California can be a contender in the ACC. You are listening to the second ever episode of the You Think You Know Sports podcast. We are going through the entire country of college football, doing a podcast just like this. It is May the 6th. And listen, if you follow me on TikTok, we have over 10,000 followers in a short time there. I hope that you will appreciate the stats. People have asked for me to do a podcast rather than just a live video every day or videos on TikTok. And hopefully you can listen to this at the gym. You can take it where you need to go and you listen as you work, whatever you need to do. So California, this is a team that went 7-6 last year in the ACC, 7-6 overall, 4-4 in the ACC. They were 4-2 at home. You know, and the first thing I always think about when I think about California is I think that the Bears, when they join the ACC, were going to have a distinct advantage on teams that were traveling east time zone to the Pacific time zone. I thought that Cal was going to really benefit from that. That hasn't happened. This is a team that is 1-5 in those games. Now, again, games against Louisville and Auburn don't count. Just counting teams that are in that, in the central time zone there. Or Eastern time zone, not the central time zone. But Cal has also not been as bad, I don't think, as people thought when they would play Pacific time to Eastern time zone, which the Louisville and Auburn games fall under that. They have been 2-3 going West Coast to East Coast. Again, when teams go East Coast to West Coast to play at Cal in Berkeley, they're 1-5 the last 2 years. That's surprising. So you bring in this former Oregon defensive coordinator, and Tosh Lupe, played for Cal. He's a Bay Area guy. Seems to fit what they're looking for. I saw a part of a podcast with David Pollock where he said if he put all the college football coaches in an octagon and had them fight or wrestle, that he's taken the Cal head coach to win the whole thing. Obviously going to be a big focus on fitness for California. We'll see if that pays off for the Bears. California's not had a winning record in conference play since 2009. That is, look, you join a new conference after being in the Pac-12. It's going to take some time to adjust. All the travel, we were wondering what it was going to look like for California. We talked about that. But if they're really going to take the next step, they're going to have a winning record in conference play, right? So I think that this year the schedule sets up where that might be possible. We're going to get to that in a second. Saga Polutele. Again, say that 10 times fast. Jaron being his first name. Listen, I struggle with names sometimes. 18 touchdowns, 9 picks last year, 64% completion percentage, over 3,000 yards. He was sacked 30 times. 30 times. All of the momentum that he brought in at the end of the year, though. He threw for over 300 yards in 3 of his last 4 games. 7 touchdowns, no picks in those games. Has led to a lot of talk about him in the offseason. Deservingly so. Absolutely deservingly so. One stat I love to look at for quarterbacks, and if you listen to these podcasts, if you listen to me on TikTok, you're going to get tired of hearing it. He was 24th best last year at passes that were 20-plus yards downfield, meaning they traveled 20-plus air yards. He threw 71 of those. That's among the most in the country. 9th most in the country, to be specific. Not afraid to throw the ball deep. His first pass against Oregon State last year, first pass of his college career was a pretty deep pass. I think it qualified for this. So California's got they're 60th in total snap percentage returning, according to CBS Sports. 41% of their total snaps returned this year. 47% of those are on offense, 35% are on defense. But they don't have any all ACC players returning from last year's team. None. There's not a single player who was even an honorable mention on those teams, including the young quarterback. They have Mark Hamper back. They have Mason Minnie back. The tight end. Hamper had 17 catches last year, but he had 48 the year before. He struggled with injuries last year. We'll get to the other receivers that have come in since then. Minnie caught, I believe, the first ever touchdown Saga Polotele threw. He had 35 catches, 4 touchdowns last year. He has 40 catches in his career. A little bit to work with there. You have 3 offensive linemen back. Tyson Ruffins is probably the best of those. He started every game last year, 156th in PFF's offensive lineman rankings last season. Frederick Williams is back and is one of those 3 as well. Look, you've got some talent that you've brought in for sure, right? And I think that's what makes California such an interesting team to talk about this offseason. Their starting running back, Adam Muhammad, has come over from Washington, or we assume he's probably going to be the starter. It's behind Jonah Williams last year. 106 carries, 523 yards, 5 touchdowns with Washington last season. Then you brought in Dorian Thomas from New Mexico, who had 56 catches, 560 yards, 4 touchdowns last season. And people say, well, look, he played at New Mexico, right? He was at New Mexico. What is he going to do at California, right? Still D1 at New Mexico. Well, he had 10 catches and 2 touchdowns against Michigan last year in the Lobos opener, okay? He can play against elite talent. Chase Hendricks has come over from Ohio. He caught 71 balls last year. In his first 3 games last year from Ohio, he played Rutgers, West Virginia, and Ohio State. He caught 20 passes in those games. And he caught a touchdown against Ohio State too. And people will say, well, that was probably in garbage time. It was not in garbage time. It was a early third quarter touchdown that made the score 13-9 Ohio State. I think the final score was like 37-9. Also, they brought in Cooper Perry from Oregon, who caught 10 passes last year. Defensively, they brought in 3 more Oregon players. Ricky Fletcher's come over from Ole Miss. You've got Daniel Harris from Georgia. You've got Groves Killebrew, a defensive back, Marquise Groves Killebrew, coming over from Arizona. So it's clear that Tosh Lupe is trying to rebuild this roster in his image. We know that California last year was not good enough on offense. The San Diego State game, I still can't believe it. I mean, they played a San Diego State team early in the year that had just gotten beaten up. Maybe not blanked. I think they got beat badly by Washington State. California lost to that San Diego State team, and it was ugly, man. The next week, it was ugly. I remember talking about it on the show. And California was a pretty mediocre team across the board last year. Can you get more from this defense? You know, they were 114th in sack percentage. They were 98th in takeaways. And they were 108th in yards per rush, right? So, and yards per rush allowed. So think about that. They couldn't get to the quarterback. They couldn't take the ball away. And the other team could run it on them, right? So California certainly needs to get better on defense in all 3 of those phases. Look, if I'm playing a defense that can't sack my quarterback regularly or pressure him, can't take the ball away and can't stop the run, I feel pretty good about my chances, right? California was also 135th in rushing yards per game, only 74 yards per game. That's 2.5 yards per rush. Man, listen, you got a young quarterback who is carrying this offense, and he's got no running game behind him. That is tough, man. That is a very, very, very tough situation for JKS to be in, and I thought he was pretty poised through the majority of it. Expectations are going to be through the roof for him this year. The schedule is interesting. 5 of the first 7 are at home. You know, I mean, look, they start with UCLA. They go to a Syracuse team that I cannot wait to break down on this game or on this show with Steve Angeli back. They play Wagner. You're paying them. You should win that one, right? Clemson comes there on a Friday night, right? You get Clemson going East Coast to West Coast on a Friday night, September 25th. You come back and play at UNLV, right? It's not the furthest road trip, but Dan Mullen in year 2 of the Running Rebels. Listen, I think that's one that you got to be careful with, okay? Then you host James Franklin and Virginia Tech on October 10th. They got to go East Coast to West Coast. You host Wake Forest the next week. They're going East Coast to West Coast, okay? So that's 3 opponents in the first 7 games that are going Eastern time zone to Pacific time zone. Cal goes to SMU on a Friday night on October 23rd. Okay. Then they have NC State on October 30th, right? Those are games that are both currently slated to be on Fridays. I don't love it. At least the Cal game, again, or the NC State game, again, is a game on Friday night where you played Friday night the previous week, but you got to go Pacific time to Eastern time if you're Cal for that one. The next week you're off, but then you go to Virginia. You host Stanford on November 21st, and then you host Pitt to end the year. So you play 5 of those first 7 at home. You have 3 straight road games from October 24th to November 14th, right? There's a bye week in there. But if you want to see California, see them early, right? Because once you get through those first 7 games, once you get through those first 7 where you play Wake, they will go over a month without playing a home game. From October 17th until November 21st, okay? They play their last 2 at home, Stanford and Pitt, as I said. They have 3 Pacific time to Eastern time trips, and they have 4 opponents that go Eastern time to Pacific time. Those things are always important to me. I believe that California could be a surprise team in the ACC. I really do. They brought in some good talent here. I like the receiving core that, at least on paper, I like the quarterback. I like what they've done, knowing they've got to get the running game going. They've got, plenty back on the offensive line. Those guys have got to be better, right? Those Ruffins was good. The other 2 have got to be better. They didn't grade well from PFF. But you know who's not on this schedule? Miami's not on this schedule. You're not playing Miami. I mean, you're also, I don't know what Florida State's going to be. I don't think they're going to be great, but you're not playing Florida State. I mean, not playing Miami, I think, is huge. Getting by without having to play them is pretty big. The other team you don't play is Duke, who won the ACC championship last year. They're not playing either one of those teams. I think that's big for California. Guys, I'd love to hear from you. Tell me what you think about Cal. I'm going to post a video on my TikTok page as well about this Golden Bears team. Tomorrow we're going to be getting into Clemson and Duke. We're going to be getting into those 2 teams. I did a TikTok on those 2 today. So, guys, I hope you'll find me on TikTok if you have found me in the podcast. You think you know sports on TikTok. And remember, this podcast is available on Apple Podcasts. You can listen to it on Amazon Music, YouTube, Podbean, Spotify. And we're still adding. So hope you'll find us there, and I hope to hear you, or hope you'll hear me on the next episode as we get into more ACC teams. We're going to go through the entire country this summer as we wait for college football and the NFL to return. See you guys on the next episode.